Hi, I'm Burned01, and here to my right is an amazing artist, Baron Engel, aka, you said your pony's name was?
Skybrush.
Skybrush, that's right. Go ahead and just pull the mic up here. Be all official.
Oh, okay.
Opening question, how are you enjoying the con so far?
This is probably one of the most wonderful conventions I've been in over 10 years. It's my first pony convention, period. But I have had probably some of the most enjoyable moments I've had in quite some time here. The fans are amazingly approachable. You know, I've had some wonderful conversations with complete strangers I didn't know till this weekend. And I'm hoping to be able to stay in communication with a lot of people that I've met this weekend after the con's over with.
Oh, yeah, that's actually awesome to hear, and I feel the same way. Like, everyone's just so nice. You said that you're actually like feeding off the energy, and like it was kind of inspiring you as well.
Yeah, it was really great because I just could sit down and I would just start drawing, and I just drew and drew and drew. I probably had 7 hours sometimes at one point where I just sat here in the convention, talked to people, sketched, and had these wonderful conversations while creating all this work here this weekend. And now I've got a whole lot of great ideas. I'm going to come back from the con and help do some finished work with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, actually, it's a little bit of a funny story. When I was walking to go to one of the panels in the main panel room, so I was walking from my room, I was just walking by the little coffee shop in the lobby, and I noticed that you were actually sketching, drawing, but I didn't know who you were at the time. But I saw one of your drawings, and I instantly recognized it. I instantly recognized the style and just the quality of the sketch that you're making. And I just saw it, and I was like, oh, that's really good, and just kept walking, and I stopped. And I was like, wait, I know that style. And then I instantly turned around, and the other Cute Air Crusaders were like, oh, what is Burn turning around for? And I was like, I recognize your style. I was like, do you have a DeviantArt? And you're like, oh yeah, it's a Baron Engel. I was like, oh my gosh. And then it all came together and clicked because there's a car in the parking lot covered in blue tape, and it says draw on me. And I saw some pony drawings on there, and I was trying to pick out the best ones, like who's a good artist. And there's a couple on there that were really cute, and they were signed Baron Engel. And I was like, I feel like I know that name. But I didn't connect Baron Engel with your style and your sketches.
Well, drawing with Sharpie markers on blue painter's tape on the side of an SUV is not my usual medium.
Not your usual medium? Okay.
But it was an interesting challenge. It's nice to push yourself and work outside the box.
No, it's fun to work in different mediums. Sometimes I find silver scions are an enjoyable medium to draw on with markers, but maybe that's just me. I actually just made up what car brand it was because I've forgotten.
Kia Souls. I drove for Kia Soul, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's my car.
It'd actually be nice to paint on like a hippie van or something.
Yes, nice big flat surfaces.
VW and Sharpies might be fun.
Yeah, it would work pretty good.
Anyway, I digress. Going back to your sketches and styles, you have an amazing traditional graphite sketches, amazing traditional graphite sketches, and that is the main thing that I picked up on your DeviantArt was some of your pony graphite sketches. And I know you do more work than that, but we'll get that into a second. If I can get Pinky Dash to look at some of these beautiful. These are vinyl scratch sketches.
Correct.
Pick up the book. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work in your book?
Oh, yeah, sure. And like I say, most of what you'll be seeing here as far as sketches go, and the reason why I do so much graphite instead of finished color is that my sketchbook in many cases is my dream journal. I'm a lucid dreamer, and I've, for about the last year and a half now, have been having this ongoing series of dreams that take place in Equestria. And these are very much, drawings that I can remember moments from when I wake up. And the story is one of these cases where I'll go to bed. If I have my lucid dream, the story will pick up where it left off last time. So there's been plots that have been advancing over time and everything like that. And I've been learning about the world and everything. And of course, I'm a Pegasus pony there who's getting ready, or I already have taken my first weather exam test. So I'm now a reservist weather pony. So it's been fun.
That's cute. That's cool. Set this down. So you seem to get inspiration from a lot of unusual places. Like lucid dreaming sounds extremely interesting, especially in just walking through a panel and seeing all the people and just wow, this really inspires me to sketch. And that actually seems like a real good source of inspiration. Do you have any other interesting sources of inspiration, or those are your two main ones?
Well, I'm a very curious fellow, so I get a lot of stuff from outside the fandom in general. I'm a avid history nut. I read a lot about it. I love architecture. I'm big on aviation. In fact, until I was about 13 years old, I didn't even draw figures at all. I drew strictly airplanes, cars, stuff like that, because my dad at one point was a photographer for Peterson Publication in the 1950s, so he did stuff for Hot Rod Magazine. I grew up in a lot of the hangars, garages, and racetracks down in the Southern California region. So I still draw a lot of my stuff from that too. There's a lot of artists like Keith Ferris, Chris Magyar, Angus McBride, wonderful illustrators, and they have a very profound influence on my artwork and how I go about doing things.
Very cool.
Oh, that and Alan Lee, who's God.
God himself.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your very inquisitiveness and fascination in history and stuff like that, you mentioned that you were also a world builder. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. I do concept design for people on occasion, and I've also done role-playing gaming for quite a number of years, done GMing and everything like that. In fact, one of the things I've helped collaborate on is my roommate actually has created a role-playing pony game called Ponytails. And it was lots of fun helping him, and we're still working on it. We're at version 3 right now. Our 3rd edition of it just came out right before the con. And it's been lots of fun going and playtesting the game and testing the world out and trying things for it. And we kind of created our own location for it because we wanted it kind of away from Canterlot and everything like that. So it wasn't too much of worrying too much about story concepts that were happening actually in the
story
series.
canon versus the world you want to develop.
Yeah, exactly. So he created this place called the Valley of the Heart's Delight, which is a tribute to the Santa Clara Valley where I live in and where he lives in. And it's been lots and lots of fun just going through and saying, okay, if you're going to have ponies, how does the world work? How does it work like our world does, and how does it work differently? And it's been a real blast. And like I say, doing concept design, I'm sometimes brought in by people who will say, okay, we're going to be basing this off a story or something like that. So I have to read the story and then say, okay, this is all working good, but this part doesn't fit with this part here. We need to have this all kind of mesh and integrate. Nothing gets developed in a vacuum. It all connects to things.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned obviously that you do a lot of concept work, and you have some lovely pony sketches, and I mean, that's how I found out about your work, was I was really drawn to it. But I know you also do some other stuff. You do some sci-fi work.
That's correct.
And I'll grab that little book, but do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Oh, yeah. I haven't done as much over the last few years, but I have done work for pre-production for film and television. Unfortunately, it's true about a lot of things in Hollywood. 80% of everything that gets started never actually gets finished or even done. So I don't have that coveted screen cred, which is what I want so badly someday. And it's lots of fun, once again, to be able to go through and tackle problems. Question, how are we going to go about doing this? Years ago, I worked on a project where they had robots in it, but they didn't have any idea on how the robots were going to function and interact with the humans. So I actually had to basically go through and come up with all these concepts of protocols on how, if robots were operating close to humans, how would they make sure they didn't squish people, how they not, override stuff. So it was a very, very fascinating thing. Yes, there's some. Those were for some commission works I did in Germany.
I love the little musketeers. That's great.
Yeah, that was lots and lots of fun for it. That's just my basic life drawing sketches.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I do like anatomy sketches. Are always very cool.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is people will quite often ask me, how do you draw ponies? How do you draw, dragons? How do you draw spaceships? Whatever. And the first thing I tell them is learn how to draw a period. Once you know how to draw, if you can draw a bowl of fruit in front of you, you understand shapes, you understand composition, you understand shading, you understand how light and dark works.
And the importance of line.
And line, everything like that. Once you know that, then you can start saying, well, if that's how this works, I can start changing things and breaking it and getting it off into different directions. I've done wildlife art on occasion, so when I work on a lot of my dragons and everything like that, I view them much more from the viewpoint of being a real living animal instead of just simply being a fantastical being. Also, too, I try to make them actual individuals. Dragons are always these smart, intelligent, wise creatures, so I just don't make them kind of funny-looking dinosaurs. I tried to actually make them real. You know, you can imagine sitting down and talking with this guy. You might end up getting eaten at the end of the conversation, but you can have a conversation with this guy.
But still, like sentient dragons.
Sentient dragons, yeah. Okay. And even, you know, the more I keep studying things, the more I start realizing how things have personality. I tried drawing horses in the past, didn't have much luck at. I've tried drawing horses now recently, and now because of ponies, one of the first things I do when I start trying to draw a horse is go, okay, what's this horse's personality like? So I think that's an individual, and then when I start doing that, I start putting that character, and so they seem a lot more spontaneity, a lot more life to them. Once again, Angus McBride, wonderful illustrator. It's a pity he's no longer with us. And he did some of the best horses I ever saw. And I remember reading about the fact that he always, all of his characters in his illustrations would be riding horses or leading them or something like that. And he'd kind of name them all. And he would name all the horses, because as soon as he started treating the horses as important elements of the picture and as individuals themselves, his stuff got a lot more spontaneity and life to it. And I think that's one of the reasons why Friendship is Magic has just been so powerful, is that you have these very provocative characters.
Because of those personalities behind those horses. As
those wonderful candy-colored ponies. Oh, yes, and, you know, the crew at DHX has done such a wonderful job of bringing that to life.
Well, on one of your, or going on your style, your ponies have a very unique look that is like kind of true to horses, but they also have a very lovely cartoon look, and you have a very interesting crossover in between that. And that's more of a compliment than a question.
Okay.
But you also mentioned earlier that you actually came to the con and got to show something to Sibsy. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, it was kind of fun. I mean, you know, I got a chance to meet several of the people on the cast. I got a chance to meet, you know, Peter New, wonderful fellow. Got a chance to, you know, talk with some of their folks. Amy, she was the writer. She was here today, and I actually met her this morning.
Oh yeah, Kathy Westlock?
No. Senior moment. Great. I have an excuse. I have gray hair. But yeah, it was just wonderful, and I wanted to come up and see Sibsy, and I had conveyed a little bit back and forth with her, you know, because she'd seen some of my work, and I was very, very disappointed I was not able to finish her birthday present in time, but I found out how to get it shipped to her and everything, so it'll be... You
did a sketch of Sibsy with ducks, didn't you, on your DeviantArt? Did you do that?
I did some ones of Wildfire.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wildfire sketches.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And those were actually the preliminaries I used for the piece I'm going to be doing for her, but I just haven't gotten a chance, didn't get a chance to finish it, and so I wanted to make certain that it would be a way I could ship it to her, and how could I, and she told me how to send it to DHX, and don't send it to Halifax, so she'll never see it.
Yeah, sure.
But it was really, really neat to meet her and talk with her, and, you know, very down-to-earth person, you know, and, you know, we got a chance to talk a little bit about, you know, work in the business and everything like that, and came away with some very useful information, and I thank her for her time, because all the guests here are just so busy this weekend. You can see them going from one point there, and for her to take some time out of her day and everything like that to talk to some guy who she had talked a few notes back and forth on DA, but outside of that, I was a complete stranger to her. But she still made that time. That was great.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That actually sounds like a really awesome experience.
It was.
Well, speaking of experiences, you actually, a little ending note is you had an interaction with Peter New, I believe, that you were telling me about earlier. Yeah.
We were down at the bar, and this mother approached us, and Peter in particular, and she had brought her son to Everfree. It was his first Everfree here. Convention, first pony convention, maybe it was his first con altogether, if I can remember correctly. And she wanted to thank Peter because, you know, her son had walked up to Peter, and Peter had been very friendly and very welcome and very cordial to the kid. And he was kind of shy, I got the impression. And that the mother had been so impressed on how much friendship there was, basically, literally, in the convention. And, you know, we thanked her, and she went on her way. And then I had like this epiphany of a moment. I realized, and I said, looked at her, Peter, and says, you know, it's funny how people, you know, will laugh at, you know, the bronies and everything who aren't members of the fandom. So look, they're just going to these weird conventions and everything like that. And I'm going, well, the whole point about this convention, the whole message of Friendship is Magic is friendship. And what does this say about the world if seeking out friendship is weird.
Yeah. Or frowned upon.
Or frowned upon,
or considered
yeah.
unusual.
Yeah, and I started looking around the convention, and I realized that if this can continue, if the lessons that are taught here and on the show, if this can be compartmentalized and made part of people's lives and everything, this down the road in 30 years, this could be a very profound thing. It's like how Star Trek changed a lot of people's perceptions on science and science fiction, and how the world could be.
Yeah, I really like that point because Star Trek started out as entertainment. It started out sci-fi based, but it started there and then sprouted into something that was inspirational and did kind of mold a generation.
Yeah, and we see it now. A lot of people I don't even think it's all coincidence that all this private space exploration stuff is being pushed now by the generation that grew up sitting in front of a TV watching, Kirk and Jean-Luc Picard. And so if we can make friendship a concept that people think of, and acceptance and tolerance, what will that maybe do in 30 years from now when these young folks are basically the heads of industry, they're teaching our children in school, they're in political office, making policy decisions and everything. It's one of these very subtle things. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds.
I think it's still that little thing of ponies that kind of gets in the way of wanting to see the greater picture,
Yeah.
But maybe it's silly ponies is something that we can overlook for the sake of friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway.
Nah.
But I wanted to thank, we're about running out of time, so I wanted to thank you again for doing this little interview. It was wonderful, and it was wonderful to meet you, because this is the first time I got to physically meet you, and it was awesome. I loved everything you had to say.
It's been really neat to be able to meet people here that all I know them as avatars and little boxes of text on comments and everything like that. So I really hope to be able to be back here next year, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
You're welcome.